All right, welcome to Silicon Slopes Live in partnership with the Utah Outdoor Association. And joining us today is Alex Adema, who is the CEO of DPS Skis. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Got a couple of skis behind us. Very, very nice colors. And I was picking them up earlier. They weigh like as light as a feather.
Yeah.
So we'll get into all that.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool product. So what is the history of DPS Skis and how did you end up there?
So DPS was founded in 2005. Our founder had a previous venture for a couple of years with our current ski designer and European partner for a couple of years prior to that, and then sort of reformed as DPS Skis just a little over 15 years ago. Originally, just kind of out of the motivation of frustration and wanting to ski a different way than was currently available out there. So, looking to design new shaping and new ways to ski that didn't currently exist. So it was kind of motivated out of that frustration and vision for doing things a different way. And at that time was a smaller company based out of Boulder, Colorado, actually, and just contract manufacturing, building skis overseas. And then I want to say in about 2010, 2011 is when we just started to reshore the manufacturing process here to the U.S. So we actually opened a small factory in Ogden at that time. And then we're now on actually our third Utah factory. So we're actually now in the Granary district here in Salt Lake City. For myself, I joined DPS about 5 or 6 years ago now. Our founder and I were actually college roommates and friends about 20 plus years ago. We kept that connection loosely over time, and as they continued to grow and need more infrastructure and more kind of operation support and whatnot, we talked about me coming out and joining the team, and kind of flirted with that for a couple of years before taking the opportunity. So I grew up as a ski racer myself in the Northeast, and just had a love and a passion for skiing and everything that goes with it, the camaraderie of the friends, the travel, all of it. And so it was just kind of a fantasy dream type of opportunity for me to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that would probably be envious of being the CEO of a ski company, but we'll talk about that there's a lot of actual work that goes into it as well.
That's right.
All right, so what is the process for DPS to build a ski in 2021?
It's becoming more and more of our own internal manufacturing process for sure. The way it started out, like I mentioned, was doing contract manufacturing. So there are a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are at least a handful of companies in kind of Eastern Europe and Asia that build skis for many brands and many snowboards. So a lot of the skis that you'll see on a ski shop wall have come from the same factory in one sense or another. As we started to reshore that process, we started out mostly as sort of an assembly company. So we're buying parts, we're designing them, but buying them from other contractors and assembling them in our small facility in Ogden. As we've grown now, we've brought more of those processes in-house, really focused on vertical integration. To be able to compete as a U.S. manufacturer, we really need to be able to do more and more in-house and have more control of the manufacturing process rather than constantly giving away margin to a lot of suppliers. So yeah, for us, it's we just in the last year and a half or so started even building our own wood cores. We have a new wood milling shop where we do that. So it's pretty exciting to see kind of all the way from the beginning, and little by little we're picking off each part and bringing them in-house. So the next one to come for us is the actual printing of the top sheets, for example. So there's lots of steps to that process, and each year we're looking to bring a couple more of those pieces in-house.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Getting vertically integrated and kind of controlling your own destiny there.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Especially during COVID times, it's proved to be really helpful because we're not as dependent on other suppliers. We still have had a couple issues, frankly, where we had our steel edges coming from Ohio, for example, or our top sheets coming from the Northwest, and they were under strict lockdown. So it's nice to have control of that process, whether it's COVID or port issues or whatever it might be. The more we can do that in-house, the better.
Very smart. So there's obviously a lot of science and math and engineering that goes into the skis, and then there's like the fun stuff of picking the colors and the logo and design. So who gets to pick the colors and the design of the skis?
Yeah, we're really blessed with a couple of amazing designers, graphic designers in that sense specifically, and our marketing director and our marketing and creative director has been with the company now for 8 or 9 years, and so there's a real consistency over time and a lot of foresight into kind of what we would like to see happen over time. So we sort of try not to to waste designs on what could be really cool future projects. So there's a really long kind of planning process in that, and a consistency in that legacy over time. So, you know, we tend to focus on sort of a European clean design, and what's special about DPS skis is what the shaping of the skis and what's inside the ski, not so much on the crazy graphics that are on the outside of the ski. So one of the ways that we work well with our ski shops is we don't change skis every year just based on graphics, trying to sell the pictures. We actually keep a family of skis for a few years so that they don't have to, you know, blow them out at the end of the year. They can actually keep them on their shop wall and keep the same pricing and all that. So there's kind of a lot of thought that goes into the whole process of that design specifically, and making it sure it's consistent over a few years and really has some staying power and legacy, you know, over history of the design in general.
Yeah, very cool. So you guys are kind of committed to a little bit of a higher end ski, and you've put in a lot of time, effort, and money into that. So I'm a decent skier, just a normal Utah, you know, go out 5 to 10 times a year, and probably not good enough to tell the difference between a really good ski and a bad ski. But what are some of the differences between your product and competitors?
Yeah, well, and I would say, you know, if you haven't had a chance to try, you know, a wider ski or a rockered ski or some of the new shaping things that are out there in the last handful of years, even at 5 or 10 times a year, you could really tell the difference. It's pretty fun what we're doing and what others are able to do at this point. As far as DPS specifically, it's just always innovating on the shaping in particular. There's different skis for different conditions. You know, a lot of people refer to it as their quiver. So they like to have a front side groomer ski or a nice, you know, resort powder ski or a touring ski. So there's lots of different things that go into each one of those as far as the shaping specifically. Things like a rockered tip and tail, which allow you to kind of float over the surface of the snow, more of a surfy style than used to be a decade ago. And then the other real big differentiator for us is we're a full carbon fiber layup. So a lot of skis traditionally are made, you know, fiberglass and wood, foam, things like that. And we have some of that going on in our ski, but predominantly there's actually 2 full layers of carbon fiber underneath the top sheet and just above the base layer that just make it a really lively, energetic skiing experience, but also a lifetime kind of a lifetime livelihood to it, where so, you know, some of the fiberglass skis will sort of get damper over time, but a carbon fiber ski will keep that over the course of the, you know, however long you own it for. We actually got a chance to test that recently. We had a ski come back from one of our early customers for some reason this summer. I can't recall the exact reason, but we did some testing and some flex testing on it, and found that the specs, it was almost still within the same specs of when it was manufactured 8 or 9 years ago. So it's pretty fun from that perspective to see that true.
Yeah. Very durable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to the, you know, garage sales and you got these skis from 30, 40 years ago, and they're thin as can be and quite heavy. When I picked those up, it was very light, and these things look like a lot easier to ski on than the skis that I was latched onto when I was 8 years old.
Yeah, for sure. Especially here in Utah, where, you know, if you're at, you know, one of the local resorts here that just have a lot of great fresh, soft snow, or even just kind of resort crowd efforts, been skied out for the day. Some of the designs that, you know, you have the rocker tip and tail, again, just make you kind of get above the snow. When the old boards that were, you know, 60, 70 millimeters underfoot versus some of these which are 112, 120 millimeters underfoot, you really kind of get to surf and play on the snow more so than just kind of sink into it and plow through it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. All right, so you joined the company as COO, is that correct?
Yes.
And you've transitioned to CEO.
Yeah.
2 different roles, and buck stops with you.
Yeah. That's right.
How was that transition, both for you kind of personally and then the team?
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting ride. I mean, I'm really blessed with an amazing team. Frankly, without the group that we have, you know, I would be nowhere in that sense. And I'm really glad to have had the experience of a few years in the previous role that I had. So I really have kind of a rapport with the team and understanding of how the business runs, because it took me a little while to learn that in the first couple of years that I was here, and I hadn't worked in a manufacturing setting before. So to kind of have that base to work with, everybody shares, or many people share, the passion for skiing and snowboarding to some extent. So there's a camaraderie around that. And then there's just such a devotion to what we're doing. I always joke that it's more fun than making toaster ovens or selling insurance. And not that there's anything wrong with either of those activities, but it's just something about having everybody who wants to take these products home on the weekend and play with them and test them out and, come in Monday morning and talk about their experience with them. So that makes it really, an easier role because everybody's just so excited about it and takes great pride in the work we're doing. So from my perspective, it's all about the team, and the transition has, it's definitely been a learning experience for me, and just kind of understanding the difference in roles and kind of letting go of certain things that I used to have my hands much more involved in, but then kind of wearing the weight of different things that I didn't have to as much previously. So, still going through that process. It's been a couple of years for me now, and have a lot to learn for sure, but it's been, good so far.
Yeah. All right, so what do you do when it's snowing at 5, 6 a.m., and you show up to work and you've got a bunch of people that called in sick that day?
Thankfully, we don't have too much of that, but we definitely do have some flexibility built into to allow people to do that, so they can enjoy the passion and remember why we're doing it. There are times, though, even in the middle of a ski season, when we have to back off of that a little bit. So for me, I actually don't do really hardly any weekday skiing kind of December through January, because it's just, it's just for various reasons over the years, it's been crunch time for us. As we get into this time of year, it's a little easier to get out and meet with people and do a couple of runs or get out early, things like that. From a factory setting, because we do have our factory here in Salt Lake, it's a little tougher to have so much flexibility on a powder day, for example, because you really need everybody there to be able to run the process. If a whole department or a part of a department's missing, it makes it tough to build skis. So there's always a bit of a trick in sort of balancing that between some of those more flexible roles and then some of those more rigid roles. But yeah, we definitely try to leave room for that so people can enjoy, and be reminded of why we do what we do and kind of have that passion fueled.
Yeah, there's a reason you guys are located here and not in the Mojave Desert, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, there's, that's part of the reason we moved here from Boulder even, which, Colorado is obviously well branded as a ski state. There's tons of ski resorts and things there, but, being in Boulder, it's still not as nearly as easy access as we have here. So granted, the Cottonwoods are getting tougher on a powder day, but generally speaking, I mean, you can be up and down to, one of the Cottonwood resorts or Park City or wherever, in 25 minutes. And so we can literally go up and test skis in the morning and come back and have a meeting, by lunchtime and talk about what we learned that day and, go back into the design process and be manufacturing prototypes within days of that. So the access and having, again, control of that manufacturing process is really vital for us as an innovative ski company, kind of driving that design factor of what we do.
Yeah, a little R&D, and it's fun.
Yeah, that's
pretty
right.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys are an upper echelon ski brand by design, and other brands that are similar, whether it's watches or cars or desks, there's certain ways to sell those types of products. What's the best way you guys have devised in recent memory to sell your skis to that clientele? Yeah,
so we're really careful about respecting the partners that we have as far as ski shops specifically. So you'll typically find DPS in specialty retail shops, the higher end shops, whether it's a mountain town or a resort town. And we go out of our way to protect map pricing, for example. I talked about a little bit before with the top sheets, how we try and kind of give some staying power to the skis over a few years so they can really maintain that premium aspect of the product. And we don't try and, I think you joked earlier about the carpet bombing with AOL, for example, when the CDs just went out everywhere. And that's kind of almost the opposite of what we're doing. We're not looking to expand into every ski shop that you see when you drive down the street. There's just many chains. And if we do that, we start to water down the kind of special nature of the ski, the product. And we're not really chasing volume in that sense, but we really want to chase just that right customer who's going to love the ski, willing to pay a premium for it, and work with those specific shops who are very loyal and work closely with us. So that's really the focus for us is that partnership with those shops, and not sort of undercutting that with volume discounts and things like that as seldom as possible anyhow.
Yeah, gotcha.
And we have a bit of a trick we do direct-to-consumer sales as well. As we started out as a direct-to-consumer company, a lot of ski companies don't really have that luxury unless they're only direct-to-consumer, because there's a channel conflict there with the the shop networks, the distribution networks. So we try to balance that really carefully too. So if we get incoming phone calls from somebody looking to buy a ski and we don't have it in stock, we'll direct them to the local ski shop in their area. We have other kind of ways of doing that, but we are always trying to kind of refer people to those shops that are that we're really supportive of and have a good partnership. But that's really key for us, is maintaining that channel conflict balance. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, so you mentioned your role as a CEO in crunch time, December, January. What is it like in July and August? How is that different?
Yeah, we joke about this because some people think we might have schedules like teachers, which is really just not the case.
Nice.
Yeah. What happens is we have a lot of work to do in the off season. It just becomes much more predictable. It becomes a lot more like project management, whether you're doing systems upgrades or kind of refocusing on any sort of systemic or process things that we wish we could have gotten to during the season, during the flurry of everything, and just haven't gotten a chance to. So we kind of get back to doing those types of things. And then the other trick with our business is because it's such a condensed season, ski shops take deliveries of their skis around Labor Day through Halloween, even into Thanksgiving. That's the prime delivery season. And unfortunately with the product we're building, they're not small widgets that you can just mass produce in a hurry. So we really have to build up to that all through the spring and summer. In fact, right now we're really sort of starting to build towards our fall delivery. So that's kind of what we're going through as far as the summer goes, getting ready for that fall delivery and improving processes, systems, things like that throughout the company. So we're very busy, but it's just much more predictable in the off season.
Yeah. So if you get this answer wrong, that's fine, but factoring in the supply chains that you mentioned a little bit earlier, how long does it take for a ski like that to be made?
Factoring the supply chains, we have some lead times that are probably closer to 2 months, depending on the materials. Like for instance, I'm thinking maybe our top sheet material comes from Europe. Right now is going to the Northwest where we're doing our printing. Eventually it'll come and we'll print it in-house. So that would be about probably the longest is a couple months. We have some wood that we get imported depending on the species we're using for different ski shape or ski production. And then once we actually have all the materials in-house, I mean, we can build a ski in a couple of hours, few hours. By the time it's kind of starting to go through the process, the wood core, graphic top sheet printing, things like that take a little bit longer. But once all that stuff is ready to go, we're assembling the ski, pressing it. Press time is about 20 minutes for us, and then there's a finishing process that kind of goes through that iteration. So we can build skis in a day as long as we have all the materials in house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And only 2020 question will be, how were your supply chains impacted, and how many oh crap moments did you have?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for sure we had a big oh crap moment like everybody did in March. It was very abrupt when the ski resorts shut down. I think it was March 12th, March 13th. Here in Utah, it was a day after Colorado. The governor in Colorado shut it down. Utah was the next day. Europe, it was actually about a month ahead of us on that. So, there was kind of a couple of those moments for us as we saw Europe starting to falter and then U.S. shut down. And really for us, the concern is what does that mean for the ski ecosystem in general? All the people that support that system, whether it's transportation or ski shops or restaurants or hotels, all those things. So for us, how were the ski shops going to fare was really the big question. Thankfully, it turned out that in the summer, everybody was just dying to get outside, and so they were gobbling up, climbing equipment, camping equipment, whatever they get their hands on, and that really ended up supporting many of our ski shops that kind of cross over into biking or whatever it is in the summer. So that was reassuring because at least we knew we would still get paid and we could keep paying our employees and so on. But there was a string of time there where we just weren't sure if we should keep producing skis. We weren't sure if it was safe to be bringing the team in and producing skis. So we actually converted for about 2 months, and we built the plastic polycarbonate face shields for the Utah Department of Health, and that's a whole story in and of itself. But we were seeing what other companies were doing in the manufacturing setting, converting, kind of like I heard a lot of those stories about World War II conversion, and like we've got all these machines here. What can we do? And to make a long story short, our engineering team, some of our manufacturing supervisors came up with the fact that we could do this. We partnered with a couple other local companies, Petzl and Goal Zero in particular. particular, and we're able to do that for Utah Department of Health. And what it did was it allowed us to keep our team working through that time, and everybody is much more motivated and felt from an ethical standpoint like, yeah, we should be coming in every day and working. And then we learned that we could work safely, and we're able to transition back to making skis in that process. Whereas if we didn't do the face shields, we might have felt the pressure to kind of pull off, and then who knows when we would have felt safe and comfortable and all that kind of stuff. So we did have a couple of supply chain issues, to your question. Ohio shut down, as we have one of our key supplies come from Ohio, similarly with Washington State. So there have been a couple hiccups, and those persist. Thankfully, they haven't ground us to a halt at any particular time, but we're constantly kind of on the lookout and watching for those and having to respond. So, and that makes for tough decisions when something is held up for even a couple of weeks. It's, do we shut down the factory? How do we take care of the team during that time? Are there other things that we can shift our attention to? So, and we're still battling a bit of that for sure, but it's become more manageable, and now we're kind of understanding a little bit of what that's going on. But I've heard from a couple of bike companies just recently in the last 2 weeks actually that similar types of problems. So it's not unique to us or DPS or skiing or Utah, but it's certainly something everybody's contending with still.
Yeah, I kind of had a front row seat of all that because you were on the Silicon Slopes Economic Impact Committee.
Right.
And I don't think we need to revisit those.
Yeah,
those
that's
months,
right.
but
Yeah, a little bit of
we were all
peak.
cheering for you, and it was, you'd hop on once or twice a week and kind of give an update. And so kudos to you and your team for keeping on.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry to detract, but that's one of the beautiful things about being here in Utah is really we felt that community support. And for us to even have the contract with the Utah Department of Health took a lot of people kind of vying for us and referring us and supporting that effort, and people helping us chase down materials. Like I said, Goal Zero and Petzl made sizable donations just to make sure we could do that, because we thought we'd actually take a financial loss in that process, but we at least could keep our team working. So having the community support here in Utah was pretty fun to be a part of, and just see that collaboration happen, and has given us ideas about future things that we hope to accomplish as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there will be new ideas that spawn from 2020. All right, so according to your LinkedIn profile, you founded a church in upstate New York, right?
Yep.
What's harder, founding and running a church or running a ski company?
Yeah. They both have their challenges, that's for sure. That was a pretty fun and unique experience in my life. I grew up in upstate New York, and actually was quite involved with some outreach work in the east side inner city of Buffalo at that time, and doing a lot of kind of physical help works and mobilizing people who had construction skills but weren't kind of serving in their community to do that work. And that kind of led to helping to start that church. And then that was actually right before the earthquake in Haiti started. So I had the opportunity to lead, a dozen or so teams down to Haiti to help with earthquake reconstruction. So there was a lot that was wrapped up in that was an extremely rewarding experience and really fun to be a part of from a community aspect. Certainly one of the big differences is in that case, you're really mobilizing volunteers, and that's a whole nother kind of skill set and kind of vision casting that you have to do in that sense. And in this sense, in a for-profit environment, you're still leading a team of people, but it takes a different kind of approach and different skill set to do it. So they both have their challenges, both very rewarding. And a lot of it is surprisingly transferable as far as just kind of leading teams and trying to cast vision and all that. And especially, again, like I said, I'm just spoiled with DPS. It's a fun place to work. There's so much passion and sort of purpose behind what we do for everybody. So in that way, there's a lot of similarities, So there's that kind of common camaraderie and solidarity, especially the last couple of years with things we've been dealing with. Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to get married on the top of a mountain wearing DPS skis, you could do both.
That's right, yeah. I'm not actually an ordained minister,
okay.
but maybe I could get the certification.
Yeah,
but it's funny that you say that, because we get pictures emailed to us all the time, literally of people on top of mountains in DPS skis getting married. It's like I think we put out a couple of social posts around Valentine's Day, and there's people, they pretend they're snuggling in bed with their skis, and they get married in their skis and all that kind of stuff. So it's a fun aspect of what we do too.
I had not seen that. I was just a guest, but I'm glad that people are that passionate.
That's right.
Very cool. And then one more quick little tidbit. You were the lacrosse coach for the entire country of Sweden?
Yeah, so it sounds a little more grand than it is. Lacrosse, especially back then, was a very nascent, kind of sport, and that was 20 years ago now. I think maybe the late 90s, maybe even more than 20 years ago. But yeah, it just so happened I got an invitation to coach there, and went over for a summer, coached with the team. They had the World Cup was in Germany that year, and then 2 years later got another opportunity to coach with them again. The World Cup was actually in Baltimore, Maryland. So it was just a really unique experience. I was a young guy. I mean, I was playing lacrosse in college, and you know, as looking back now, I think of how naive I was and how crazy it was that I even had that opportunity. But yeah, to stand on a field with, you know, our Swedish team, the Japanese team, and then refs from, you know, wherever, Scotland, England, you know, different countries, and you just hear all these people yelling at each other in different languages and calling for the ball. It just was a surreal experience. So really neat, and it was kind of fun because, you know, when I started out at DPS, our 2 European operations people were based out of Stockholm, and had a chance to visit with them and kind of go to some of the old places that I went to when I was there. And so it's kind of funny to have that all come full circle with them.
That's a beautiful country to be the head lacrosse coach.
Yeah, it was great.
Very cool. And so lacrosse is big on the East Coast, and I'm really glad to see that it's come pretty strong.
Yeah.
You know, to Utah.
Yeah.
Do you have any role in, you know, coaching still, or involvement on a local level?
No, I really don't. I may see myself getting back into it a little more. I have four young kids, and as they're getting into it and kind of figure out who's kind of into it and who's not. But yeah, it's really exciting to see, and especially in Utah, how well organized it is compared to, you know, where it would have been 20 years ago. And now that University of Utah has a Division I program, and Westminster has a good, I think, Division II program, and there's a couple others. And you know, I have friends that coach, and they have actually come into town to coach against some of the teams here, and it's fun to watch that. But yeah, it's really great to see how far the sport has come out west. And you know, Denver University has been doing really amazing as well. And you know, the Western states, if they can, you know, continue to grow this way, have a great recruiting advantage over a lot of the East Coast. You know, there's a lot of legacy and tradition there, but you know, again, lacrosse players tend to like be outdoorsy and like to ski and things like that. So it really, you know, it'd be fun to see University of Utah in particular now that they're Division I. I think it'll be exciting to watch the ride that they're going to be on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of moms that are going to be pushing their kids to play lacrosse.
Yeah, that's right.
Good for lacrosse, bad for football.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the baseball coaches never like growing lacrosse programs because they lose their best athletes over to lacrosse for sure in the spring.
Yeah, a lot more options these days. All right, so you know, you can get in these arguments, or you can find people that agree, but you are an industry that would be affected in several ways by, you know, environmental impacts, global warming, whatever we want to call it, from the wood that's in the skis to not enough snow and everything in between. What are some of the things you guys do as a company, whether you think about or actually implement, to kind of combat that and assure that you have a robust industry going forward? Yeah.
The truth of it is, ski manufacturing in general is not the most environmentally friendly business. You know, it's really hard to recycle a ski. You know, you've got a lot of, you know, you got hard resins and carbon fiber and wood and plastics and metals all on that ski. It's really hard to recycle. Although there are companies working on kind of new innovative materials to make that process easier. But there's a lot that we can do on the front end to try and, you know, be respectful and be good stewards of kind of what we're doing in that process. So one way that we're working on that is trying to shorten our supply chain, use less emissions in getting stuff here, trying to source more domestically. You know, we source a little bit in Asia, occasionally from South America we might get some wood, and a little bit in Europe. So the more we can shorten that supply chain, the better. We're working more towards sort of automation and additive manufacturing processes, rather than in the past, you know, you're taking all the materials, smushing them together, and then cutting out all the extra until you get down to the shape of the ski, which we are still doing some of that, but we're looking at ways to keep doing additives so we're not taking away and just throwing out as much from that standpoint. And we're looking at, you know, for example, the species of wood that we're using in a couple of our skis are really fast reproducing species, which means that, you know, as it's harvested for the ski, it can replenish itself, where there are other species that aren't so much that way. So there are lots of things like that we can do, for sure. And, you know, I think the big thing for us and a lot of other outdoor companies and snow sports in particular is to know that we can't be perfect yet, but we're just going to start doing stuff. So we're constantly doing stuff. We have a team that meets every third week and kind of talks through all the different sustainability things we can do. And that even comes down to packaging. Like we're removing plastic, you know, instead of sending every t-shirt with a plastic bag, you know, either looking to do something that's compostable or even no bag at all and just a string that says, thank you for your order. So we're constantly looking at those sorts of things. I happen to sit on the climate change committee for SIA, which is the Snow Sports Industries of America. And there's lots of companies that are trying to understand kind of what the best way to proceed is. And the biggest thing for us is just start doing something. Even if you can't sign on to big pledges and do big things, let's all kind of work towards this together. So there is definitely some current concern and a lot of debate about climate change in general and how that affects the ski world. And the ski resorts are very in tune with that and kind of understanding the potential realities of that. So we're kind of all in this together because we're all this interdependent ecosystem that needs to really understand what that looks like. And then even more on just a local level, I mean, the things that are so common and maybe talked about it almost, I don't know, ad nauseum, but even clean air here in Utah is really important to us as a company, not just because we want to live in a clean, healthy environment, but because it actually makes it harder for us to recruit. So we've actually had trouble recruiting people because of kind of some concerns or stereotypes and things like that. So all these things, whether they're global or local, are really important to us as a brand for sure.
Yeah, very important to all of us. So a couple more questions. What's the most exciting thing coming down the chute for DPS skis?
Well, we're just about to kind of fully release our third series. So this is the series of skis that are back here, which is our Pagoda. We recently just launched our Pagoda Tour skis and our Pagoda Piste. So Tour is for a lot of the backcountry enthusiasts. Piste is for kind of more inbounds, groomer type of skiing. And now the Pagoda itself is a lot of the resort powder or big powder skiing. So pretty excited to have that come out. It's being really well received. We're doing some new stuff on the way we've engineered our wood cores. That really, carbon fiber, one of the challenges of carbon fiber, it gives a lot of feedback because it's such a durable material and it just has so much action to it. So what we're doing now with the wood cores really helps dampen that. So you get a really energetic, fun, lively ski, but it's not giving too much feedback, and it's nice and damp as well. So that's pretty exciting for us. We also have another product called Phantom. It's Phantom Base Glide. So it's an alternative to ski wax. This kind of goes back to the environmental story a little bit. It's a permanent solution that replaces the need for ski wax for you kind of everyday skiers. And we have a couple new formulas that are kind of in the works that'll be released in the next year or two. And that's been a really interesting program for us because it's totally different than, even though it's the same industry as snow sports, it's a totally different process than building skis. And so it's been fun to work with, so the chemical engineers, the environmental side of things on that. And we actually launched that with a Kickstarter program a few years ago, blew away our goals by 10x what we had hoped for. And then the hard work has begun of, we got a lot of publicity out of that. And now it's like, okay, can we really convince what we kind of jokingly refer to as the crusty old racer that this product is sufficient and maybe even better in a lot of cases than the old ski wax that has been around for 100 years. So yeah, there's some really, really fun stuff on new releases of skis. And then the Phantom product is also one that's really exciting for us too.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, so last question. Utah Outdoor Association, UOA,
Yep.
and Silicon Slopes have a partnership now, and this is a part of that partnership, having outdoor consumer goods companies in a series. What went into that, and what are some things you're hoping to accomplish on the UOA side?
Yeah, so I would also describe Utah Outdoor Association, a very nascent organization. We've been around for a couple of years now. It's been very grassroots. There's about a dozen brands or so that got together and just decided from a regional perspective, we didn't have really a great kind of trade resource that was specific and tailored to the needs of the outdoor industry. And the outdoor industry companies can be so different. Some of us are manufacturers, but some of us are, some are summer sports, some are winter sports, some are, completely getting their products from contract manufacturers overseas. So there's a lot of different structures to it. And there are lots of support organizations here in Utah, including Silicon Slopes, which I would often come here to the breakfast just to kind of learn from other people in other industries. Whether it's Manufacturers Association here in Utah, some of the universities have great programs, but still having a true trade association that we can all kind of come together and support each other and understand our marketplace specifically has been what we've been going for. And there's some national outdoor associations, but none that truly represent the Utah voice and the Utah contingent. And so that's been really special to be a part of and see get going and kind of weave our way and understand as we attract more members into the association what the best area for us to be serving companies. And then I think the partnership with Silicon Slopes is great because, again, there's so much we can learn from other industries, and it's really hard to put any one of us in a box, whether it's tech or manufacturing or just product design in general. So I think there's a lot that we can learn. It'll be fun to see that crossover and that support structure built up. And there's so much opportunity, especially with the pipeline of talent that continues to get cultivated in the local universities, whether it's Utah State or University of Utah or Utah Valley University. There's lots of opportunity there. And I think, just like I mentioned the Phantom product, the way we developed Phantom product was working with the chemical engineers out of the University of Utah that do some consulting on that side of things. And again, it's not true software tech, but it's, we're working in very technical terms and working with very experienced and really smart engineers on a lot of aspects of what we're doing, whether it's ski or Phantom. And so there's a lot that we can learn from kind of those iterative processes. And I think it'll be fun to see exactly what, Utah outdoor brands can bring back to Silicon Slopes and maybe help, young entrepreneurs who are looking to get into some kind of business relative to the outdoors, and vice versa. What can outdoor brands learn from the success that Silicon Slopes companies have had, and along all those lines too. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for synergies there.
I agree, and we're very excited about it. All right, well, thank you so much for your time, Alex. Are you going to go skiing now or go back to the office?
I wish, but yeah, back to the office for today.
All right,
Yeah.
Very cool. Appreciate your time and look forward to you guys' continued success.
Yeah, well, thank you for highlighting DPS and for Utah Outdoor Association. Really appreciate it. It's thrilled to be here.